Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary. Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and realizing that sleep really does affect everything in your life, and what food you eat affects your life, and everything's intertwined with each other. I am super excited for today's guest, a girl who woke up for love and had a boyfriend for the first time ever at the age of 29, Staci Taustine, together with her boyfriend, Keith Hudson. Thank you so much, Staci and Keith, for being here. Let's get straight to it. Staci, you want to start by telling us how you woke up for love?
I was like, no pressure. I woke up for this, babe. Like, literally, I no joke. The whole thing was kind of a fiasco. I was living in New York, kind of top of my game, living my best life. I was 26 and I was teaching spin and leading leadership programs, loving every moment of it. And then I just collapsed on the floor of the 86th Street subway station. So not glamorous. The floor is gross, by the way. No one needs to check that out any closer. I investigated and it is in fact disgusting. And so ended up on those final moments, if you will, the ones they talk about where you go to the other side and come back situation and you're like hovering over yourself. And I was like, shit, like my mom is am I allowed to say that? Sorry. I swear openly. I think it adds emphasis, right?
No problem.
My mom was in Florida and I was like, oh God, I'm going to die before she gets to say goodbye. So I was just like, number one, she's going to be so mad at me. And number two, like I never had a chance to fall in love. Like those were the only two things that were sort of like present in those moments, because you do see the slideshow, like you see the whole thing. It's all these.
What's that like? What does it feel like?
It's so strange because I saw things I didn't expect to see. Like there's little things. Like I saw the first chai tea latte that I had from Starbucks. Like it's like literally like happy moments just flying by from birth.
And also not good moments or only happy moments?
No, it was only happy ones for me. It was really only, and I had a lot of not ones. So that was surprising. Like I thought that those would mean something at the end and they don't, at least not for me. Like it was really truly only the high point. And I got to sit in what looked like a classroom. So I was a teacher years before that. And so I guess whatever heaven looked like was a classroom for me. Well, I don't know what that says. And so sitting in like one of these little kindergarten chairs, I was talking to my best friend and my cousin who had passed away 3 years before. We got to sit down and talk about all the reality TV shows that she missed and like catch up. And I got to hug her and it was the best feeling in the whole world. And she was like, you can't stay. You have to go back. You still have to fall in love and your cousin is down there and I'm going to need you to look after her. So I was like, don't make me do this. Like, look how I'm like unhappy I look down there. Like, please do not make me go back in that body. And she's like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just best for both of us if you do. And next thing I know, I'm like waking up in a hospital and I have a feeding tube and it's this big nightmare, but turns out I'm here. So I guess that's something, right? And you don't forget, like I still vividly remember all of that. Like it didn't disappear for me. So as much pain as I was in, as much like medicine is coursing through me, it's like, oh gosh, now I have this like call to action of like, you're getting this second chance. Your mom is here and like gets to be with you through this recovery. And like, how are you going to fall in love now? Like you've been guarded your whole life. You have been really accomplished. Like I wasn't disappointed about anything. I was like, you're only 26, but you had a great life. Like I had no regrets about how I spent my time. I really truly was like, yeah, this has been a good ride. And so if my call to action for being here again was to fall in love, I was like, well, gosh, all you have is Tinder. Like, what am I going to do with this? Like, that's a weird sort of mission to be on for your second time on earth. And so enter Keith Hudson. And it was literally right away, like the strangest thing ever. I had been sort of living with like the feeding tube and I really couldn't walk. I had to like learn walking again and all this stuff to get back moving. So if that happened in June of that year, I met him the following December. Wow. So it was like.
So it was a year or was it a couple of months?
So June 2016, and then I met him in December 2017.
Okay, so it's a year and like a couple of months. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, how about telling us how you guys met?
We met on Tinder.
The not so classy app. I think both of us have been dating a long time. So if at a certain point you have to strike gold, right? Like if you're single and dating in New York City, eventually you have to meet somebody who's kind, right? Like it can't all be bad.
I think it was more about, well, for me anyway, it was the first time when I was like really, really like blatantly, just brutally honest when I met her in that round of me. I was very much like, I like me. If you like me, cool. But like in the past, I was pretty more eager to want to be like me. I'm this much of a good person, blah, blah. Where I was like, you know what, cool, whatever. And it felt
Take me or leave me.
It felt like I was, like I think women are better at saying this is what I want than men are. Men aren't really good at that. So for once, I was kind of like, this is what I need as well. So, and it just matched up.
Yeah.
Did you feel that he was being really authentic?
Well, it's a funny thing because he was my first like back on the app swipe. So, when you get fed up and you delete the thing and then you give in and download it again and then you wait 6 months and then you do it again. So this was one of those like, okay, like I'm going to do this again. And he was the first match I had back on. So it was kind of like a fresh set of eyes. And I liked that both of our profiles were more about like what we wanted. So there was no like room for interpretation. Like I had a list of things on my profile that I wanted to do in New York City. So I was like, message me if you want to do one of those things, because I wanted to make sure that if I was going to be out there dating, that it was going to be worth it. And that it wasn't just sort of like going on a million sort of coffee dinner dates that I would regret. And so he was down for whatever and easygoing about setting up a date. And so it was really refreshing. It was kind of easy for the first time.
Okay, so for those people that are still dating, whether on a dating app or just in general, presenting yourself out to the world, how could you go about it so that way you're attracting the right person?
Well, I think the thing is that we're not meant for everybody, and that's okay. So be unapologetically yourself, because then you'll find the right people. It's like, a fisherman, they fish all day and, they catch like 2 fish. That's the right fish. It's like, you don't want to catch like 100. You just want to catch the right one and be done.
Yeah, you don't want to have like 5,000 partners.
Well, I guess some people do.
It's like no one wants to take home 1,000 fish in a car. It's just too much work.
Yeah, I also think too, it's like dating can get so negative. People are going through rejection at lightning speed. It's like decades ago, like you've even said this to me, that like people used to give people more of a chance. Like you had 2 dates to win someone over. Now in like swipe life, if you don't make an immediate impression in the first like 15 minutes, people are like on to the next. And so I would say to anyone who's like dating right now, like it was never meant for us to get rejected at this rate. And so like to try not to let it chip away at our self-esteem, because it's not a reflection of who we are. It's just like you said, maybe they're just not the right match for us. And so just knowing that you're still good, like keep being yourself, like don't keep trying to change up for the feedback that you keep getting, because you could end up constantly changing and never actually being who you really are.
I would say most people in their 30s or even 20s wouldn't be here if their parents relied on their first date. If you really think about it.
That is true. In your process of dating, at what point did you know you were the right one?
You want to answer that first?
No, you do.
How did I know she was the right one? Well, I mean, if I'm being blatantly honest, for me, it was when she told me her birthday, because her birthday was a very important day to me, and it was the most random, weird thing. Her birthday was the day that my father had passed away when I was younger. And so for me, that just like amidst us having, a really awesome first date and awesome conversation, that was just like just the most random thing to be with someone now who's changed a complete day for me. That was always so sad. Now it's a day that I'm so thankful for.
Wow, that gives a whole different perspective on life.
Yeah. We're both kind of universe people in the sense that we pay attention. We like, there was a lot of depth to our conversation on our first date. I felt like I knew him. And as much as I'd like to say that the first date was when I knew, it was actually the 3rd date. And it was when he held my hand. I don't know what it was, but like there's some sense that I knew him in a way that I wasn't going to give up. It was wow, like
something
my
real there.
Hold your hand, So that was like okay, yeah.
Okay, now I'm really big believer in deep conversations. I like them personally on a regular level. When I meet strangers, I'll just go for that. But I think that is extra important when you're dating. Are you both a type that in general have deeper conversations? And how can people have deeper conversations if they want them?
I love that question. I mean, we absolutely both are.
Yeah, we both are. Like, my deep conversations I generally keep to myself, or I put it through my art, because I like to, most people don't want to have it all the time, so I like to just kind of spoon feed it to people. I can have it with her, but most people I wouldn't really talk to about deep conversations unless I meet them on that level.
Yeah. I'm a little bit more like you. I, sort of invite it everywhere. I'm a career guide, so I work with a lot of people to like explore their purpose. And so I think I see what it does for people when they're willing to open up and have trust in other people. I think it does kind of require you to lend trust, even if it's not earned, in the sense that we're taking a risk on people to share things with them about ourselves. And so it's really, really vulnerable. And like anytime we're vulnerable, we risk being hurt. And so I think to some extent, there's this fearlessness that goes with it. You know what? Like, I'm just going to go out there and assume that it's going to work out and just go after everything that way. And I think that's why love happened. Like, I never ever dated anyone seriously before him. I didn't have a boyfriend until I was 29 years old. So someone who like spent my life guarded and keeping people at arm's length, there was something about just saying, you know what, like this might go south real fast, but I'm willing to like trust it, even if it ends badly. And it opened up a whole new door to like what is possible. So I think to some extent there's like risk taking.
Well, I think for her, a lot of that was more natural from everything I've learned about her. Like, she was always a very like giving, trusting, gathering person. Like, I learned a lot of the same things. Well, I learned all those things through like things that happened when I was younger, made me a specific way or whatnot. So I learned how to be empathetic, and and that's why I probably still like, one time she was like, mentor kids. I was like, I don't want to be anyone's mentor. I don't want that responsibility because I value it so much. But inadvertently, to some people, I am that. And so, but it's always like, she can like teach 100 people. I'll be happy teaching 2 people. Like, cool, I'll give you some advice, but I don't want to do anything more than that. And in a one-on-one setting, I'll do it secretly. I don't even knowing anything.
Wow, well, I see you really admire her.
Awesome.
Okay, so how can a person become more vulnerable? That is so hard.
You asking this for men or for women?
Both.
I think women's strength is that you guys are vulnerable. Like, I think vulnerability is the strongest thing on the planet. So I think
women will disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'll tell you the difference. I think women are more emotional, so they're not as embarrassed to cry as men, where men like have to be the man and they can't have any emotions. But being vulnerable is still really hard for them.
Well, I say that from a place of my mother. I come from a single mother, and I was raised by my grandmother after that. And like, I guess I don't put the same meaning on that word in a negative process. I became strong when I learned how to be vulnerable. So
you have a really good relationship with vulnerability, because I think vulnerability is really good and many people just see it as bad. And for you, you just see it as good. I
view the word differently. I don't view the word strength the same way as everyone else. I believe strength is knowing when not to use strength.
That's
so
profound.
For me, it's a very, very different experience. We have a lot of conversations about how I just view things differently. I said, my father wasn't there, was already gone. And my mom, I didn't know I didn't have a dad because I didn't know he was gone. My mom was so good at what she did. So like, I revere my mother. Like, I revere women. Like, for me, there's no like completely like women are much stronger than men.
So like a special superpower.
He gives us a lot of credit.
You guys create life. It's not a conversation. there's no conversation there. It's like done deal.
Okay, that is good to hear. Being a woman myself,
There's no argument.
Yeah. While we're on that, how do you think the fact that your father died while you were so young and you were being raised by your mom affected your life in general?
It possibly made me a little more hardened, softer. It's really like there's really no way of answering that properly. I think she might have a better answer than I would, because I don't like. You don't
know any different other than what was. So
anyway, I'm probably me and my brother are very, very similar, but slightly different. I'm probably maybe like more spot on with him. Maybe if there's really any difference there, I don't know.
I think it makes you more fearless. I think underneath that vulnerability question was just like, when you have lost, or you have sort of built your world around like your own fortitude. Like he's been someone who's relied on himself from a very like early time. And I see myself that way in the sense that there were challenges that I went through, and you can go in two different directions, right? Like it can harden you and you can become more closed off or more sort of shy. You could shy away more from vulnerability because of that, or you can invite it in. And I think that's what we share in common, is that we want to live fully, and that's what allows us to do that. Like if we weren't together, I think we would equally be living our best life. You know what I mean? Like it's just that we get to do it together, but he would be doing it anyway, even if I wasn't here. And I know I would be, because we both really want to experience everything to the fullest. And so that's what I guess I think is different about him because of, you know, who he is and how he was raised. I saw it in him right away that he was somebody that I could trust to be vulnerable in his presence. And that's what I guess I would say to anyone who's looking for the opportunity to be able to have more authentic conversations. I say, like, be in the company of people that make you feel safe and make you feel like you can be yourself. And that's the feeling I get with him right away. You know, like when you're young, they're like, you're going to know you're in love when you have butterflies in your stomach and you can't sleep at night. And I was like, actually, that is the exact opposite of what I felt when I met him. There was like a calmness that came over me and like a peace that was nothing like butterflies. It was more like, like this feels so comfortable, and like I'm not having to be anyone but me. And that's what I think is like that. Like they told us the wrong story when we were kids. Like we were waiting on some prince to give us butterflies. Meanwhile, like the actual person was gonna like stroll right up and things are gonna feel super chill. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that for everyone feels different. But when you do feel that calmness, then it's that real inner peace and that real like, I know this is okay and I know this is good. Now asking that question on the other side, you want to be with someone who makes you feel safe, but how could you go and make your partner feel safe so that way they can go and be vulnerable?
I always show my partner that there's nothing that you could say that would be wrong. And you do that for me. So it's like, I feel like it's being vulnerable first so that that person can be vulnerable. I had a really hard time communicating when we met, and he almost like over communicated to make me see that it was going to be okay. So it's like you can almost teach the other person by role modeling the thing that will help them get there. So I felt like I really couldn't, like to your point of women and us being guarded, I had a really hard time saying how I felt. I'd never been in a relationship before. I didn't know if I was doing it right. I didn't know if what you're supposed to say, what you're not supposed to say. And he kind of told me right away, like, there's no way to do this wrong, you know, like just be you and we'll do it how it's right for us. And it took like a whole weight off my shoulders of like, oh, okay, like great. Thanks for that.
I think it was, for her, is a very specific answer. For me, is that like everything that I do, I have to do it as if she wasn't. So if she ever feels like I'm doing something or catering to her, I think it makes it feel like I'm being fake. So it's like, all right, would you be living this life if you were not here, type of thing. And I think that is how I make you feel safe.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off. As like, it's not like, I think a lot of us are afraid to be vulnerable because people are watching and someone might be judging. And the more that you make a sense that it's not a big deal either way, the pressure kind of dissipates and then people will step into that space. I think you can open up the space and then people have the opportunity to step in or not. So like we can't make anyone else be vulnerable, but we can create the conditions where they can choose to be.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I think that also people are vulnerable many times based not only on their personality, but also their previous life experiences. So if in the past they've been vulnerable and then they've just been hurt from it, such a person is going to take much more time to go and open up. So you have to know your partner and you do what you could. But I truly believe this, that eventually that person will open up. It might take much longer than you thought. But if you're being vulnerable, you're being patient, you're creating that space, it's going to happen eventually.
I agree.
Keith, what's it like being in a relationship with someone who woke up for you?
We're both a weird parallel because where she had a lot of those experiences, like that. I lost a lot of people at a very, very young age. So with her constant fight, I had a constant fight too. And really more of a series of unfortunate events that had really nothing to do with me as a child, just people who, there was a plan in place that my parents left, and then that plan was butchered by a lot of people. And then I think we both had to let a lot of things go before we met each other. Like I met her a month after I performed a one-man show that I wrote about my life from 7 to 17, in which I let a lot of things go between music and monologues and whatnot. And I remember calling my brother after our third or fourth date, and I was like, yeah, I met someone that's going really, really good. And he was like, I'm not surprised, because he was like, when you did that show, he was like, I saw you let a lot of things from our childhood go. So I was finally in the right spot to be able to meet someone in that period of time, which is when I turned back on Tinder within that month, and I went on a few dates, and I felt for the first time that I was in a position to control even how anyone views me or how I even view them. I felt like it was a two-way street. And then we just lined up, she was ready, I was ready, and, we both had to let a lot of things go.
So you don't think at all that if you would have met earlier, it wouldn't have worked?
We've said that before, that 2 years earlier, it could have happened. It just wouldn't have been as seamless. It would have been very, very difficult. It would have been me giving her what she might have assumed to be mixed signals. Like, if I had met her before that happened, I wouldn't have even talked about romance with her. I would have just wanted to be her friend, to help her through a rough time. I wouldn't have put that pressure on her. That wouldn't have been in me. That would be like gaslighting and just being just negligent. Like, she needs to just live life right now. She's back. She don't want to be here probably. But I know a lot of people who probably use that as a way to be with someone. I'm raised by strong women, so like by no means I know she would do everything she needs without me. Like, she doesn't need me.
I like that, because then you're individual person, and then you have your relationship together. There's no codependency. There's no, I'm not worth living without you. You're each two healthy people, and then you could have a healthy relationship. So what do you appreciate most about each other?
I appreciate her empathy. Like, she gives it to the world and really asks for not much back in return. She gives really everything she has. It's everything that she does. And, it's, a lot of people really can't say that or see that. And that's why I said, like, I view that as strength. It's like, it's really, really hard to be like, I don't want to say martyr, but it's hard to give so much and know that you're never going to get that back in return, or not the way society tells us we should get it back. That's very, very hard, because we get blessings in different ways. Like I've said, that I lost a lot of family. When she met me, I told her, I was like, I have a lot of great friends. And she was like, yeah, whatever. No group of guys is like that. And then she met him and she was like, you guys are all actually like good people. And then the empathy that she has, she was able to be like, wow, you're actually what you say you were. And that's why, like, gave me a chance. That empathy, you can't really teach that. You have to live that.
Yeah. You could like preach about it, but until you actually go and do it, doesn't mean anything.
This man is the most consistent human that I have ever met in my life. Like, I know that doesn't sound like something to be enamored by, but like, I am in awe of him every single day, because he takes the world on with such commitment. He taught me the difference between contribution and commitment. He builds up our relationship every day on purpose. Like, he wakes up with energy for our relationship and makes it part of his day in a way that I've never seen anyone commit to anything in my life. And so it makes me want to be a better person for him, to be half as consistent as he is with all the things that he cares about. And it's not just like talking the talk. Like, for someone who had trouble trusting, like, consistency matters. And so seeing that he treats everything with that same level of commitment, and whether he's like feeding our dog in the morning or sort of like doing his recording in the basement, he does every single thing with this urgency and passion and commitment that's equal across the board.
Do you recognize that, Keith?
that's a conscious thing that I started to do some years before we met, was that like I said, so being social wasn't naturally easy for me when I was a kid. I stuttered from 7 to 18, or I mean,
That's really interesting. Sorry to cut you off. I just have like this personal thing with stuttering because a few people in my family stutter. Between 7 to 18, it just started at 7?
At 7 is when my mother passed away.
Okay.
And I kept it. I mean, I pretty much kept it. Even now, I do it every now and then and whatnot. But for me, I learned a lot of confidence and to talk through skill. So where she was naturally social and outward and empathetic, I got to learn how those things worked. For me, it was like I drew because, I didn't want to talk, but I was still, expressing myself through drawing and through writing. Teacher was like, you're a really good writer or whatnot. But they were like, oh, he's still a little like closed in and aggressive. Let him play sports. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. So he can hit me, I can hit him. And this is part of the rules. You do that. And, because boys are dumb and we're different. We play sports all day with each other. We fight. And then we're like, I guess we're friends now, huh? And then I got to learn how to be social through there. And I got to see that there are different shades of guys. And I started to just be able to learn people and then just learn. And I realized that, okay, when I was an athlete or when I was making music or doing what I like to do, I was insanely confident. But the moment the game stopped, I was back to being like sad in myself, Keith. And it's like, all right, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone. I did that. And I still have those small bouts where I don't want to be certain things. But then I learned, okay, you need to be more open. And then I had a sales job in marketing, which is when I learned how to do it probably like 60% of the day, 70% of the day. And then that 30%, I kind of cherished that. And then eventually I realized that I can't be the best artist that I want to be if I can't be the best brother or the best friend. So I learned, okay, put the same passion that you put into your music and your art into being a friend, into being a brother, to being understanding, to be easier and stuff. And I try to put the same passion into my hobbies and skills or loves into everything else. That's when you start living a more fulfilled life, in my opinion.
Wow. Yeah, that takes a lot of hard work. It's like literally doing everything that you don't want to do. Has it been worth it?
Consistency is, they say, the most important virtue. And it's the hardest one. It's like, it takes time. And it's like, there are days when I'll come upstairs and like, I did a lot that day. And I'm just like mad at myself. It's like, why are you mad at yourself? I was like, well, I did a lot, but I wasn't present. In my mind, I could fall back into bad habits because I wasn't present. I'd rather do 10 things present than do 100 things not being aware of what I was doing.
She asked if it's worth it.
Oh, is it worth it? Yeah.
Just needed to see that reaction. How you would say it, what you would say about it. Okay, so if somebody wants to be more consistent, what tips could you give them after having worked so hard and still work on it so much?
It's a lifestyle change, and you can't do it for anyone but yourself. If I was doing these things to impress her, I would give up in about 3 months. Because you can't change for anybody but yourself. Trying to get anyone else to change, that's, for you and not for themselves. So it has to be like, I want to do this for myself. And that's how you'll actually see it through. It's just doing it over and over again, running your head into a wall.
Yeah, and I think that ties very well back into being your authentic self and being able to live for yourself. So if you're living such an awesome life and have such a great relationship, do you fight about anything?
It's so funny. Like everybody always asks us, they're like, you have to fight, you have to fight. And I was like, I don't think we've ever had a fight. Honestly, and it's not that I think fighting is bad because they say you need to fight. I think he makes it so easy for us to communicate that we talk about really hard stuff. So we've had heartbreaking conversations that are really challenging that maybe would be a fight if you weren't dating Keith. Keith is so consistent and such a communicator in the sense that nothing has to get loud. Nothing ever gets overblown. It's always just well, what's on your mind? Well, I'm just frustrated because I want you to know when to order the groceries before I think of ordering the groceries. And I wish that, you would just call them. And he's like, okay, so it's important to you that I own the anticipation of grocery shopping. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, cool, got you. And
wow, that's impressive.
Does that capture? I don't know.
I mean, I'd rather cut deep than have a bunch of noise. It's like, if you have something to say, cut out all the yelling and all the shit that you're going to forgive me. You're going to say sorry for later and just say, all right, this is what I don't like. And if it's got to be a gut punch, let it be a gut punch. And then I'll decide if I can take that gut punch or if I want to tap out. It's like, it makes it easier and it makes it like stressful. And I guess it could be perceived as if someone doesn't care, but I think it cares more that I want them to be happy. And if by me being the best of me can't make you happy, I don't want that person to be in a vicious cycle.
Yeah. And we apologize a lot. I like catch myself, you know, like if I've been mean or hurtful or something flies off the tongue, like I have so much respect for him that I'm going to interrupt that before it turns hurtful. Like, I think there've been times where like it's happened and I'm like, oh gosh, like that was bad. Sorry. Like, you know, like there's just like a different presence of mind that comes with having that deep respect for him. I think if it were for someone else, maybe I wouldn't be so conscientious, but I don't know. Maybe that's why it hasn't turned into any blow-ups. I don't know.
I think honest conversations are harder. People would rather be mean instead of being honest. They'd rather just be like, you know, like say something hurtful instead of telling them what's really, really bothering them. And I'd rather her tell me is like, hey, you're messing up and I don't know if we can go forward like this. And I told her that I know that what she wants right now to make her day good is not what she'll want 2 years from now. So I can get comfortable thinking that whatever I'm doing right now is going to be great forever. She's going to evolve. I'm going to evolve. And we're together knowing that we're not going to be the same people that we were when we met in December 2017. And we're not going to be the same people in 2 years from now. Our changes and wants and needs will always change, always evolve.
Yeah, it's so true. It's being so mature and self-aware of yourself and your partner and the relationship and what's happening. So you're like, okay, we don't need that drama and we're just going to go and figure this out. I love that. Okay, so last question. What advice would you give to someone who wants to have an extraordinary relationship?
I don't think there is any advice.
No advice.
I mean,
tips, anything to help anyone. If someone were to come to you, a friend were to come to you and say, I see a relationship, it's so awesome.
What I would say really is that like, it's on the person. It's like, be unapologetically yourself. And they're the only person who knows that. You know, only you know if you're lying to you. You're being honest to yourself. You're being honest to your partner.
Yeah. And I love our relationship. Like, I really love that it proved me wrong. Like, I always believed that I would have to lose a part of myself to be a part of a pair. Like, I thought that there would be some sort of sacrifice or some loss that goes with coupling up. And to me, that's what makes our relationship, quote unquote, extraordinary, is that it just added to my world. It just makes life better to have a friend for the end of the world. Like, here we are in a global pandemic and we have been quarantined since March, and you're the person I want to hang out with, and you're the person I want to watch ID channel and not be judged for liking serial killer shows. You know, like, I think it doesn't have to be all heavy stuff. I think it's really just like, pick your best friend for the end of the world wisely, because that's really what it is. It's like, if time runs out and you didn't realize that you were going to be stuck inside with this person, would you want it to be them? And I think luckily we got to say yes, and we've been tested on this because this whole thing was a surprise to all of us, but it's validating in the sense that we moved kind of quick. There were a lot of people early on who were like, you didn't date anyone for 29 years and you moved in after 4 months. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, just know, like, I just know that this is my friend for the end of the world. So I would say to anyone that if you just know, don't question it. Don't analyze it. Don't take in all of the feedback or the naysaying, the noise. Because I think noise always happens. People want to judge or scrutinize or question things that look too good from the outside. And so if you have something that's special to you, or you're building something extraordinary, I would just say to be really protective of it and know that it's private and it's yours, and that it's not up to anyone else to tell you how it's supposed to go.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think that's so important for today, because like, we live for the world. Like, there's our friends and our parents and social media, and just everyone's just like telling us how we're meant to run our lives, and just be unapologetically yourself. Exactly. Yep.
And people will still want to believe that something else is going underneath. It's like, we go through this all the time. It's like, people think we have some sort of like fake thing going on here. And I'm like, like, you're having a great time with like the story you have in your head. Like, we're pretty
supposedly she has me trained. Supposedly I'm trained.
Yeah. They're like, your guy, he's really well trained. And I was like, gosh, you don't even know me. I'm a hot mess. So nobody's training on this side. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Cass. Okay, thank you so much. Guys, if you want to check out Keith's work, go to keithtarfelhudson.com. I'm going to put the links in the show notes together with their Instagram links, Keith Tarfel Hudson and Staci Taustine, so that way you could be motivated and inspired by them each and every day. Don't you love their depth as much as I do? For them, this is just a regular conversation of what they speak about each and every day. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
It really was so much fun. You're doing such a cool thing here. Like,
Thank
I
you.
love this.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.